30, 40 years, we might even be worse than this. So we thought, let's bring stakeholders together. Let's look at all the indices that is pointing to 2050 that is already happening in the world. Let's see what we are doing in Nigeria, whether we're on the right track, whether we've not even started. And that is the whole essence. So we got a lot of international speakers together to reflect on some of these issues. If you look at the Nigerian situation in the last 3 years, we've seen that our fleet has depleted from 54 aircraft to about 39. That's a drop of about 30% in fleet size. The number of airlines we have in Nigeria, 2010 to 2013 was 14. We now dropped to 6. That's about 60% loss in the number of operators. If the airlines continue to come in and go and die, what's going to happen to Nigeria by year 2050? Less than 40 years to go. It's about 37 years actually. And we will be here, God willing. We'll be here. So what's going to happen to Nigeria? What's going to happen to Africa? Given the scenario of this decline, I look at myself, I operated an airline for 14 years here, and we failed. Have we sat down to reflect why did we fail? What is the future? How are we not going to succeed? How are we going to succeed going to the future? And if you look at the operators right now, the operators, the 6 that we're talking about, I found them in 3 stages. They're either stressed or insolvent or outright distressed. If these airlines are outright distressed and they're still hanging in there, in another 5 years, what happened to them? In another 5, 10 years, they will not be there. And then you see new ones coming up. So we are replacing by substitution. This one dies, this one comes, this one dies. And that is not the future.
Okay, Vikas, let me come to you now. One of the main thrusts of that the talks yesterday was the fact that internationally mergers and acquisitions are fast gaining ground, especially among international air carriers. Now, 2050, that's still a long way to go. But tell me why that is gaining so much ground now. Why airlines? I mean, many of them, they're big names. They've been around for several years. They're well known. They have good reputations. But they're merging now.
Definitely. Firstly, I would like to thank Sabre and Channels TV to invite us here. I've come all the way from US to talk about this seminar, which is a dozen airlines by 2050, which I think definitely we should all start thinking about it right now, because it's a long-term vision, and once we have the vision in mind, we should definitely work towards it. Before we even, I'll just try to justify with some numbers what's going on today in the travel industry worldwide. So if you see the travel trends, travel controls about 12% of the world GDP today, which is close to $7 trillion. And they're hoping in the next 5 years, it will go to $14 trillion, which is 15% of the world GDP. If you take this travel trends and just see the US market alone, US controls about 103 billion of the travel industry, and in which about 63% is completely airline bookings, which is the major part of it. And in that 63%, more than 51% of the bookings is done through online or through the mobile commerce, the m-commerce today. So keeping all these numbers, and when we look at Africa or probably even Nigeria closely, are we really there? Are we geared up for all those online numbers? And when I was comparing some of the internet penetration, Africa has only about 7% of internet penetration worldwide, which is comparatively very, very less to the Asian countries or even the European countries. So I think it's high time that we should start looking at what is really makes sense for us to reach the 2050 target. We know that it's going to be only 12 airlines.
You're certain? Is it?
Well, it's close to that. It's going to be close to that. Given the level
of the pace of mergers and acquisitions.
Exactly. So keeping in mind the mergers and acquisitions, and yesterday hearing to the conversation of some of the speakers there, it was disappointing that not even one consolidation has really gone well in Nigeria. So, which is too bad. Consolidation is not bad. It's always good for the industry because, the smaller players, it's not that smaller players are getting eliminated. It's that just that they get more strength and the top players become more, more better in providing the services to the customer.
Benga, it seems like this concept obviously hasn't been embraced in Nigeria. We still have that. Yeah. It seems like just the operators, some of them are just averse to that idea. And it looks like, from what Vic has just said, looking internationally, it seems like that's the way to go right now.
Obviously, that precisely is the way to go. I don't know how to go about that. It looks like it's on African to cooperate. It's on Nigerian to voluntarily come together, except it becomes voluntarily compulsory. I don't know. Because we've done things like that in the past. When IATA came with the idea of IUSA is the best way to measure and to guarantee safety. And it says, if you are not in IUSA, you are not an airline we reckon with, because your safety is not guaranteed. So our CAA, in his wisdom, said, all right, IUSA regulation is voluntary, but we're going to make it voluntarily compulsory. We are interested in your survival, so it is voluntarily compulsory. That's the kind of language we have here in Nigeria. Because we've been used to military, we're used to people coercing us and bringing us together. Good sense does not make sense to us. The entire world is saying, come together voluntarily. See the synergy in coming together. All right? If your Air France KLM, one French, one Dutch, came together, if United Continental came together, if you put these two people together, the aircraft fleet will go to about 1,700 pieces. A small airline in Europe, Ryanair, has almost 200 pieces of aeroplane. One small airline. In our airlines in Nigeria, the biggest you have is 30 aircraft right now, 30. Add all of them together, 54 aircraft. They're still less than JetBlue in the US. And JetBlue is not even an international player. EasyJet in Europe is about 130 pieces of aeroplane. These are still very small players. And statistics has it that yesterday at the seminar, there was a revelation that the three big African carriers, the big three,
Kenya
Airways, South African Airways, and Ethiopian. These are the big three in Africa. All of them put together, they are 38% of the size of Emirates.
One single airline.
One single airline in Asia. 38%. So if you put all the three in Africa together, they're just 38% of Emirates. And now Emirates is in Global Alliance. Suppose all these Global Alliance, one world, they come together as one airline. Where do you find the big three in Africa? Then where do you find our own operators in Nigeria? Meaning that the indices in the world is suggesting to us this is the way to proceed. This is what to do.
And we have a large market, and we're in danger of not being in the forefront of major players.
We're not even thinking about it. Our operators are not even thinking about it. They're not even ready. They don't even talk to one another.
But in fairness to them, especially the local operators, I mean, looking at what the challenges they face on a daily basis, we know that, it's a very competitive industry. Many of them are struggling. Jet fuel keeps going up.
Let me tell you, Esther, do you know that the challenges that the airlines in Nigeria are facing, if they were together, they will surmount the problems easier. If all our 6 airlines are together and they needed X quantity of fuel, and they say, hey, you fuelers, we need X quantity. Except you give us this price, we won't take from you. Rather than me alone talking to the guy, I need just 1 million liters. Whereas if we're 6, we need about 60 million. So we have a bargaining power. Some of the problems they are facing, we'll get solution faster. If you're talking to a developer, come and develop e-business for us, because we want to be internet, e-tickets, mobile telecom facility, and all the rest of them. As you're talking to the supplier, you have a bargaining power in your system because you are now many. You will reduce costs from every direction. But if you go alone, you're talking to government and government influence in policies and decisions. If they're all together and they're talking with government, this is the direction we need to go. Our government, our minister, because of this, the government will listen better. rather than me go behind and get my things done, and he couldn't get his own things done. And so at the end of the day, you have this mad competition. The mad competition